Welcome to the Are We Idiots Show, where we question the status quo on society's important issues while mixing in plenty of laughs along the way. Now here are your hosts, Mark Weaver and Rich Kroll.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Are We Idiots Show. We are your hosts, as always, Mark Weaver and Richard Kroll.
You know, it's a beautiful day in February. A lot of people say February.
Yeah.
It's February.
Especially Philadelphians say water in February.
Yeah, so it's February. We don't get a winter anymore, Mark.
Now you're regionalizing again, Rich. I've warned you. We have listeners all over the world. So in February, if you're in the southern hemisphere, it's quite nice.
In the northeast United States.
There you go. Okay.
And Canada.
That I'll agree with.
We don't seem to get a winter anymore.
Are you going to Al Gore me and say it's because of climate change and
Absolutely.
inconvenient truth?
It's absolutely due to climate change.
We did have a show on that.
We did.
And we did both acknowledge that man-made climate change is a factor. But I think we settled on we weren't sure to what extent it was.
Yeah, I got to believe it's a 10,000-year cyclical thing that we are enhancing in a bad way.
Stop eating meat. Stop supporting these the methane that's produced from animal agriculture. If you're curious about what we're talking about, go back and listen to our climate change show. It's one of our highest rated in 2019, early in 2019. All right, Richie, we always start with one of your many segments of wisdom. Lay it on us.
How many of my many segments of wisdom are worthwhile?
You've only had a few misses. One was a few weeks ago, but you're pretty good at this.
Okay, I appreciate that. So I noticed that my dear wife, Jill, often gets...
Christy
Kroll, often gets headaches and often migraines. Now, I know a lot of women do, and apparently it's tied to that monthly hormonal thing, but I also
Not
noticed...
necessarily.
But it can be often. I also noticed my little 10-year-old daughter, Kaylee, gets headaches sometimes. And I never get them. I never, ever, even, with the traditional hangover, I don't get headaches, knock on wood. But, so I thought about this. So I looked into it a little bit. Here's some natural remedies for all you folks that potentially suffer from headaches on a regular basis. So a lot of it is messing with the cold and hot of your body to either constrict and open up arteries that often cause a lot of this pain. So if you get a headache or a migraine, and a lot of these are quick, you want to react quick versus trying to jam down 1,600 milligrams of Tylenol. So get a bowl of ice water, put both your hands in the ice water, put them in as long as you can. It's going to be a little painful. Try to keep them in there for 5 minutes, and then open and close your fists. Open and close your fists, like constricting and opening, back and forth. Supposedly that relieves headaches. Another is take a bowl of very warm water, maybe even hot water, put your feet in it, then put an ice pack on the back of your neck. It's supposed to draw blood down into your feet and out of up into your head. Another is there's a pressure point, famous pressure point. Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center even promotes this one. Between your index finger and your thumb on both hands. If you turn your hand over, Mark, you'll notice there's a little bit of a bulbous pad in between there.
Yep.
If you trace around that, it kind of ends bone to bone.
Just like kind of like an acupuncture-like treatment.
Exactly. Put your thumb in there. It'll actually hurt, but kind of grind in there for 5 minutes on left hand, then your right hand. That supposedly will relieve your headaches. And then lastly, the old brain freeze?
I do. You've talked about it on the show.
Yeah, I actually talked about how to relieve a brain freeze.
Correct.
They're saying to induce a brain freeze, which will have the opposite effect. So go grab a Slurpee, go grab some ice cream, put a piece of ice on the roof of your mouth, and supposedly that brain freeze will help take away a migraine or a headache.
So, I hope that happens for many people with headaches. I will say that having multiple people within my immediate family and once removed family that have suffered with migraines, and I've actually probably done a lot more research on it than you. And actually, yesterday on CBS Sunday Morning, they had a segment on migraines. They are one of the least understood problems in society and one of the least funded. So they don't know what causes migraines. They really don't. I mean, that's the bottom line is they really just don't know how to cure them. And there's lots of remedies that help, but they don't really understand it very well. So we'll have a show on that someday. All right, Richie, on our show today, we have Idiots of the Week. I have a couple of nominees for you. Then we're going to talk about Medicare for All. It's a term that we haven't really heard up until about a year ago. I guess we can credit Bernie Sanders for that.
Socialists.
Yep. And we're going to conclude the show, Rich. I think you'll enjoy this. And make sure you listen, listeners, all the way to the end. We're going to have some fun with worst treatments from history.
Medical treatments.
Since we're talking about medical treatments and Medicare today and medical insurance, so to speak, we're going to highlight some really bad treatments that we used to deal with things in the past. But we don't want to forget our patrons, Mark Zlotnikoff, Eric Weaver, George Muldoon, Mike Smalls, Chris Barbie, Scott Carney, Alvaro Puga, and Larry Helms. Thank you so much for all of your support. We couldn't do it without you.
Still no Tom Rafferty on that list?
No, you gotta really amp up on your guys, man. They're still laying low on us. So
Jeez,
I don't know. Maybe you don't know as many people as you thought. Maybe that could be it.
Maybe I don't know as many people that actually like me as I thought.
That could definitely be. We did a show on self-awareness, remember?
I failed that test miserably.
All right, Richie. So I have a special Idiot of the Week. It's the TikTok edition. Are you familiar with TikTok?
I am not.
You're not?
Or maybe I am. I don't know.
Okay, well, it's social media, so you probably aren't.
Probably am not.
So TikTok is a Chinese company that is all the rage with young people. And it's a little bit like Snapchat, if you're familiar with Snapchat.
I am.
Okay, so it's like short videos, 15-second videos, whatever, and they use it for all different variety of things.
Is this how coronavirus started?
No, but that's a good theory to spread. But anyhow, it's very popular. And you remember the Ice Bucket Challenge, Rich?
I do.
That was several years ago. It was kind of a harmless thing. It was actually for charity. I believe it was for Alex's Lemonade, and it was kind of a harmless challenge. Well, evidently, a disturbing trend is starting on TikTok where youths are doing stupid challenges on video. And
people from Utah?
Utes. No, the Utes. Remember from My Cousin Vinny?
I do.
Herman Munster, or what was his name in real life? Fred
Munster.
Gwynn. Fred Gwynn.
Fred Gwynn.
Fred Gwynn was the judge.
Correct.
Okay. You got to keep up with me, Rich. I'm
You're
moving
all
quick
over
today.
the place today.
A lot of caffeine. All right, Richie. So the first of the TikTok challenges is the cereal challenge. In this test of wills, a person pours milk and cereal into the open mouth of a person lying down and then eats breakfast from the human bowl.
Wow. That's
But I guess the person has to hold it in their mouth and like not
you got to
swallow.
hold your breath, and the person spoons it out of your mouth.
Well, I guess could you, if you had your mouth full, could you breathe through your nose? I guess you could.
I don't think. I think they're connected. The mouth and the nose.
I don't know, but I don't want to. I don't really want to try it because it's disgusting, and I'm kind of a germaphobe, especially as I get older. Second one, Rich, the Skull Breaker Challenge.
Oh boy.
Depicts three friends, and they're using that I'm using that term loosely, jumping next to each other as the outside guys or girls, I guess, kick the middle guy's feet out from under him. The action sends the person crashing to the ground on their back, landing on their back, and usually hitting their head in the process.
Why wouldn't everybody want to do this?
So they're standing behind and they're like kicking out his legs and he falls back.
I'm surprised we haven't started doing this.
I mean, it's a great form of entertainment.
Oh my goodness.
All right, and the last one, the penny or outlet challenge, involves slipping a penny between a partially dislodged phone charger and the wall outlet and watching the sparks fly. Last month, pranksters at a Massachusetts school gave it a whirl, leading to a local fire official warning that they could have started a fire that would be undetected, burning in the walls, endangering everyone in school.
And couldn't they get shocked themselves as well?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but that like kind of goes without saying. But they pull out the charger a little bit and stick a penny down in
Why?
between. I guess to see the sparks fly.
This is a Chinese thing?
No. TikTok's all globally. This is American.
global,
Yeah,
okay.
this is American kids doing this. I mean, the ones I saw. So, Richie, I know it's really kind of just idiotic, and you don't have to pick a winner necessarily. But of the 3 idiotic TikTok challenges that I gave you, you can pick a winner, and then just comment broadly on the idiotic nature of people on social media. I know we had many of them last year where people were taking pictures out of a train. And what do you think about this trend, Richie?
Well, I always told you one of my rules of thumb is I don't do anything where if I make a simple mistake, I can die or dismember myself.
Or hurt someone else?
So I try to use that as a gauge and a measure. So,
Cracking someone's head on the sidewalk?
well, exactly. If you're using someone's mouth as a bowl for cereal, whatever, no
That is
big deal.
disgusting.
It's just disgusting. The person doing it can probably choke, maybe to death, but that's kind of just stupid. Kicking someone's feet out while they jump upside down and land on the back of their heads. I mean, if they're doing this on cement or asphalt or
like at school.
hardwood or tile, wow, that's really dumb. And if anybody's had a concussion or hit the back of their head, it's bad. I guess it could lead to death, right? Hence the name cracking your skull.
Yeah, skull cracker.
But I'll tell you what, messing with electricity in the walls that can actually burn an entire campus or school down and also kill yourself, that is my
Or
winner.
kill your classmates.
Yeah, that's the winner because if you want to kill yourself doing something stupid, that's your choice. But when you involve potentially hundreds or thousands of others, that's the winner.
All right, the outlet challenge or the penny challenge. So, kids, if you're out there thinking up stupid things to do on social media to get attention, think first. All right, Richie. So we're going to talk now about Medicare for All, and as many of our subjects originate, they usually start. Well, not always start, but they usually start with our tiny brains between us somewhere. And this one in particular started on our text group. I don't know if you remember, but we've had multiple text arguments / debates / discussions about coaching. And usually it was around NFL or MLB, because we usually are talking either Eagles or Phillies in our neck of the woods. But it could apply, of course, to basketball or hockey or whatever. But the discussion around, what am I talking about?
We are talking about Medicare,
Yeah, Medicare.
and you're talking now about coaching.
I was thinking about our analytics versus gut. Sorry, folks. I was thinking about our analytics versus gut next episode, and I went into that.
Wait, you said you had a lot of caffeine. What did you really have this morning?
I didn't eat, so that could have something to do with it.
Are you drinking scotch?
No, I'm not
Okay.
drinking scotch. I'm perfectly healthy and perfectly coherent, but evidently confused.
Clearly, I'm
All right,
confused.
so I'm way ahead of myself. I'm thinking about our next show, so I apologize, folks. But here we go.
So we'll
I'll get
call
back.
We'll call that a teaser.
I'll get back on track. Yes, we're going to talk about analytics versus gut, and I was thinking about that, but I'm way ahead of myself. Anyhow, so we're talking about health insurance and Medicare for All, and we were talking about our text group and how Bernie Sanders is come up in our text group, how he's a socialist, yada, 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 yada. And he has termed this term Medicare for All, and I thought we'd first start with what is that term, what does it mean? So Medicare for All is synonymous with single payer. And that really means that the government takes over all health care. And they are responsible for all copays, payments, all costs are rolling up to the government. So when you hear Medicare for All, and usually that's Bernie Sanders saying it, or
AOC.
or AOC or Elizabeth Warren. Those are the ones, and all their ilk are the ones who are doing that and promoting that. And, that would eliminate, they want to outlaw and make illegal private health insurance. So that right now, the estimate is about 160 million people on private health insurance. Most of us that I know are on private health insurance. Usually that's done via your employer. We had a show on Is It Really Health Insurance back episode 17, and we posited on that show that the system is awful as it is because the government has been involved in it. And the fact that government has been involved, it stifles competition and therefore raises cost. And the answer to the problem is not to minimize competition and just have the government be the sole provider. So that was the outcome of that show. And before I go any further, Richie, so just to set it up, so it's AOC, Bernie, and Elizabeth Warren. They want this outlaw private insurance. And then there's this second tier group, which is kind of in between what we have now and Medicare for All. It's called the public option. And that's Biden, Buttigieg, Bloomberg, and Klobuchar. And those are the only ones that really count at this point. So there's all-in government. That's Bernie the socialist, mostly. It could be Elizabeth Warren, I guess, still. And then they'll call them the moderates, Blumenthal, Biden, Buttigieg, and Klobuchar. Of course, Biden may be out. So that's what we're talking about. We have a lot more to talk about. But what do you think about that right now? What are the average voter thinking about these subjects? Sorry for the long intro and the diversion from my mind.
Well, I might need some caffeine after that opening. So it's that time of year where presidential candidates and their constituents and supporters are looking for angles to get voters excited, right? There's plenty of things to talk about versus Trump, but what gets people excited? And remember, folks, the majority of our country is blue collar, right? The majority of our country is earning at that mid-level down to poverty. And everybody in that level, well, and anybody that's normal, would love free stuff, right? They would love to have less expenses and costs in their life. And medical and health insurance is usually a big one. So I see these folks preying on the weak or the uneducated or the needy and throwing things out there like whether it's free health care or free education or wiping away your debt,
Right.
And it's mind-blowing because the first thing a person that has any clue would ask is, well, how? Right? How? That sounds great. I wish it was, and I'm sure some countries have tried this. I think Canada has a health care program similar. But
in UK, too.
If you peel back the onion, taxes are astronomical because it's not coming from people donating. It's coming from the general population increasing taxes.
Right.
So
because the government doesn't have any money, it has to come from taxes from the rest of us.
But no one talks about that. Hey,
well, Bernie, in his defense, he has said that middle income people will pay more taxes, like the Scandinavian countries. Where he's disingenuous is how much it'll cost, and we'll talk about some of the unintended consequences of this later on. But so the problem is right now, and I agree with you, Rich, that over the next 9 months, how much is 8 months till election, you're going to hear a lot about this subject. That's why we're doing this show. And in one form or another, you're going to hear about Medicare for All, public option. Trump's probably going to say well, they're all socialists and what have you. But there's still a big worry out there. And you pointed out that both that Democrats and Republicans alike, the number one issue when polled about that's on their mind as far as a concern is health care. So, and when you think about it, at the end of the day, it's really all of our first concern. I mean, if you don't have your health it doesn't really matter if you don't have any money, if you don't have any, I mean, the health of you, your spouse, your kids, and your people that you love, well, at the end of the day, that really is the most important.
Or the opposite of how you worded it. If you don't have your health, who cares about your vacation home and your cars and your
Or politics.
or anything?
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
if you've ever been really hurt or sick, it's hard to concentrate on anything that matters.
Right.
Right. When my back went out,
Maybe that's what's the problem today. I couldn't concentrate on on my opening of the podcast.
there's more to it than that, believe me. But when my back went out, the worst it ever went out, it was hard for me to even be nice to my loving little daughter to come in and say hi to me.
Right.
Like, you just can't think straight.
Right.
All
Yeah.
you can focus on is how do I relieve myself of this pain. So yeah, health is everything, regardless, and it's almost impossible to plug in positively to anything else if it's not.
And to take it even to a step further, if you're terminal, anything that you planned or whatever, everything goes out the window. Like if you get cancer and you think you're going to die, or you get something that you think is a terminal illness, I mean, everything that you thought about prior to that, it becomes secondary. You know what I mean? So I totally get it that, and you can make an argument that we should all be more mindful of living this way of our fragile nature of our health. So the point is that both Republicans and Democrats see this as a big issue. There are still, even after Obamacare went into effect, it was supposed to cure all ills, but there's still 30 million people that don't have health insurance. There's a variety of reasons for that. But let's talk a little bit about what this public option would be and what the single payer option would be. So a public option, Rich. So again, the Bernie Sanders of the world is all cost would be absorbed by the government, and we're going to talk about unintended consequences of both of these. The public option would be, and when they say that, that means that there would be a government-sponsored plan for everyone to potentially choose from, and private insurance, as it exists now, would still exist. And the immediate thing that I think about is, well, how does a public option, how does a private insurance company compete with a quote free option? Because everyone has to pay.
Why would I ever choose that option?
Right. So this public option I see as dangerous for not only insurance companies, but also for the quality of care. And we'll talk about that in a second. I think my point is that if they get a public option, ultimately that will erode the private market so much that eventually I think it will lead to Medicare for all or a single payer option. You see what my point? Because how do you compete with that? I guess you could make an argument that the public schools would be a similar analogy. So you have public schools, everyone pays into public schools, anyone can go, but private schools still exist. So maybe that's what ultimately happens, is that there's a premium private, all the rich people pay for their health care, and everyone else, middle class and below, go to the public option.
Well, then, to follow through on that analogy,
Do you agree with that or no?
I agree with, but you'd have to have a distinction between both where one is better than the other. So the perception is private schools are much better than public schools, or you get a better education in private schools. Even though you can send your kids to public school, it's worth the 10 or 20 or 30,000 a year because they're going to get a much better education that are going to get them into much better universities that are going to get them much better jobs.
Right. Well, I agree with that. I think that analogy holds true because think about it. If there was this public option and 30 million more people who are not insured now came on to get insurance and it was free, what would happen? I'm going to put my economics hat on, right? It's a supply and demand issue, right? So if something is free, as opposed to now, everyone has to pay a little bit, whether it's co-pays or out-of-pocket minimums or what have you. Most people have to pay something to go to the doctor. If it becomes a free option, truly free, and everyone's paid in their taxes, what'll happen? They'll use it more. So, and this is what happens. This is what has happened in Canada and the UK. You get waiting really long wait times for services. So you can't get to the doctor. You have to wait for non-essential services. You have to wait maybe if it's an elective surgery, you might have to wait 6-7 months. I heard in the UK, like in the outback of Canada, something that's like 48 months is the average. 48 weeks is the average for waiting for an elective surgery. I mean, so you can see human behavior would be such that, hey, I'm not really sure if this is a problem or not, but hey, it's free. I'll go to the doctor.
Well,
you know what I mean?
You get what you pay for, right? So the analogy would be, I get some schmuck, Hervé out of the University of the Malagasy Republic who has a 2-year medical degree operating on my knee, or I get the University of Pennsylvania, some guy's been doing it for 30 years, so it's worth paying into that like it is a private school.
Right. But do you agree that the quality of the public option would probably be such that it really would be a different, to use the private school versus public school analogy? I think it's an apt.
It would have to be, otherwise, why I'm not paying into it.
Right.
I'll choose the public option if I'm getting.
Well, no, you don't. Everyone has to pay into it. That's the point. It's paid for by taxpayers. You don't get an option.
Just like public school, everybody pays into
Right,
it. But what
right.
I'm saying is, if I'm paying into the Medicare for all, but I don't want to wait 48 weeks or get some nitwit operating on me, then I would go around it like the private school to a better doctor or a better hospital to get better care.
Right, but in the UK and Canada, they prohibit competition for the most essential surgeries. So you can only have these other options for non-essential stuff. So if it's a cancer surgery, you got to go to the government-provided plan. And that's what Bernie and Elizabeth Warren and AOC want. They want to outlaw people from having private insurance.
Well,
because
that's crazy to me, right? So you're educating me. I didn't realize that,
right?
Which makes it even more insane,
right?
And it must be nice for these people to promote this because I guess they've been pretty healthy their whole life. Wait till they have to go use some nitwit, to operate on a. So it's easy for people that are sitting back healthy at age. How old's AOC? 28, and Bernie's pretty healthy, and I guess Warren's been pretty healthy.
Well, Bernie just had a heart attack, by the way.
So you would think someone. But he's probably been healthy most of his life.
Right.
Which is now easy to...
Well, he's a communist. Let's be honest. He's a communist.
He is a communist.
So the point is that he believes that we can lower the overall cost of healthcare by doing this. And his position is that I think some estimates say his plan costs $32 trillion. And just to give the listeners context, we spend a total federal budget about $4 trillion a year. And over 10 years, they're talking about $32 trillion just for this.
So basically doubling our...
So, yeah.
And adding $3 trillion a year.
Right. And his point, Bernie's point is, if you listen to him, he says, well, we're paying this anyhow. It's just in the private sector. And my point is that he's totally discounting the fact that if they go to this, quote, free system, it'll be overutilized. And the scarcity issue will be a problem.
You know why he's right, though? You know why costs will go down?
Right.
Because the majority of humans will die 10 or 20 years earlier, so you don't have to spend any money on them.
Well, I thought it'd be funny, so you could actually say, I'm going to lower the total cost of food in the country. So we're all going to get rations, like army rations, and you won't have the choice to go out and eat Indian food or Japanese food or Chinese food or Italian food. No, we're going to lower the cost of food in the country by just giving everyone rations. I mean, it's a similar thing. Like, take away choice. Like, I thought liberty was a key determinant of who we were, but evidently not if you're Bernie Sanders. So, what do you think about that, Richie? Bernie Sanders, does the selling of freebies and the misrepresentation of the sacrifice, will that be enough to get him elected? What do you think about that?
I don't think it'll be enough to get him elected, but it's praying. We talked about this, and I told you several times before, the average voter doesn't do any research. Right. They just scratch the surface. So if I can elect a guy that's going to get me free health care, and maybe free education. Yeah, sounds great.
And relieve your college debt. Don't forget that.
Relieve the college debt. Maybe pay off my mortgage at some point, or bankrupt, help me go bankrupt.
Free
And then
house.
people don't really understand. Not many ask how, and then look into it like we are right now, or you have, or I have. Because when you peel it back, I keep saying peel it back, when you unpack it, or whatever you want to say, and look into it and research it, it's ludicrous.
Now, let's talk another layer of unintended consequences, Richie. So what do you think would happen if, let's assume that Bernie doesn't win because everyone's scared of socialism, and they should be, or communism in his case. And let's presume that a public option exists because all the other Democrats are saying they want a public option. And we talked about the problems that could, with competing, a free option competing with a paid option. What do you think will happen when the vast majority of people are on this public plan and getting public reimbursements, and they're very powerful because they have a lot of clout, and they start saying, "No, doctor, we're only going to pay, instead of $50 that you've been getting, we're only going to pay you $30." What do you think will happen to the doctors? Right now, and I think our whole lifetime, and really going back this whole country, the best and brightest people, a lot of them, went into the medical field because there was an expected payoff, right? They knew they could make a good living. They were helping people. They had to put in 7 years of school or maybe more with residency. But there was a reward. At the end of it, they were seen as worthy in society and valued in society, and they were highly compensated. When they start controlling these costs, what do you think is going to happen to doctors?
Same thing that's happened to public school teachers. You're going to get less and less people going into that field.
Exactly.
Because everyone does the math. There was a time, call it, 40, 50, 60 years ago. My parents were teachers. My mother-in-law is a teacher, or was a teacher. She's now retired. I know a lot of teachers. And at the time...
My parents were both teachers.
Your parents? The pay was kind of up there in line with many other things in life, right? But as technology exploded and all sorts of other opportunities, all of a sudden, the pay for teachers kind of stayed the same. And people started going, well, wait a minute. I'd rather make 80 grand or 100 grand or 200 grand than 40 grand. When before 40 grand, maybe the highest someone was making was 70 or 80. So it was a great profession. I now see a huge decline in not only the amount of people that want to be teachers, but even the level of expertise and passion, and you get what you pay for. So the same thing will happen to the doctors. There'll be less and less people going into the medical field, less of our brightest will be going into the medical field, and then we're going to have a bunch of hacks.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing is that if the reimbursements come down, and again, this is all in the context of that we know that the existing system, costs are out of control. We've already talked about this on the prior episode, the why that is. It's because there's limited competition, yada, yada, yada. I won't go into that here. But what will also happen, Rich, is doctors will leave, but innovation will stop. Because if you're not getting reimbursed for the latest treatments, you're not going to have them. You're not going to try them. You're not going to invest in new technologies to try to get the latest cancer treatment or immunotherapy or what have you. So in addition to the doctors fading away and certainly not going into primary care, I really think hospitals and drug companies and everything along the whole chain will have much lower innovation because there won't be a financial reward for such. What do you think about that?
100% agree. I mean, a lot of people don't realize some of the most prominent institutions in the U.S. are research institutions. Right? They're connected to medical schools. They're connected to advancement, whether it's in all sorts of things. And you need money to fund that, right? So if the money isn't there and you start having reimbursement scenarios like you just described, all of a sudden you're losing millions and millions of dollars that go towards researching different diseases and ailments and how to cure them and how to prevent them, which a lot of these medical institutions do. That's all, they do that for a living. So yeah, it's yet another ramification.
And I think that, when you think about it, we spend, and one of the arguments why we need to reform this is because we spend a higher percentage of GDP, I think it's around 18% on medical care, and yet our life expectancy is not any better than some of these other places with socialized medicine. And that may be true. I happen to think that has a lot to do with our diets and other aspects, not necessarily the fact that I think we do have the best treatment mechanisms in the world for really serious diseases. If you think about it, if you have advanced cancer, and you're in Canada or UK, a lot of them come here because we have the most cutting edge stuff going, because we have the most innovation, because we have the most money in the system. So true, we're not getting on average life expectancies better than everyone else. I think that has a lot to do with our diet and our sedentary lifestyle, not necessarily the fact that because we do save a lot of people's lives with the really serious stuff because we have the best technology and the best innovation.
Yeah, we did a show on obesity. We've done a show on nutrition. We are. I think we were the fattest country in the world, due to fast food and processed food and soda and all that, blah blah blah. So, yeah. Unfortunately, we do a lot of post-causal treatment versus prevention.
Right. And we've talked about opioids and suicides,
all of
and that is also contributing to our declining life expectancy as well.
We also discussed how it's not changing anytime soon. In our fast-paced lives, fast food's not going away. People, if I can have fun and eat whatever I want and enjoy life and die at 73 instead of 78, what's the difference?
So do you have any theories on if let's pretend Trump loses to Bloomberg or Mayor Pete or Amy Klobuchar? They seem to be the top three right now. Biden's kind of fading. And the House backs this, I'll call it a public option. Do you think the Republican Senate, if they retain the Senate, you think they'll pass it, or you think they're going to keep what we have?
I think they'll keep what we have, especially if it's Republican versus Democrat mentality, right? Where we are now in an era where no matter what the other party says, even if it's smart or intelligent or good for the general public, they'll oppose it.
Right.
Right. We're so it's I forget the word we used, but
polarized.
It's even
tribal.
Right. It's if you're a Republican and a Democrat says something or stands for something, you're against it without even looking into it, and vice versa. So I think the Republicans in this case, and I would be on their side 100%. I think they'd shoot it down.
Right, and I'm for market-based solutions, so I would shoot it down too. But I do think, we've talked on the show that we're in this long-term 100-year arc of moving more progressive, and we've had a couple blips of conservatism with Reagan, and if you call Trump a conservative, he's not really. But we've had some pushback periodically, but the long arc of the last 100 years has been much more progressive. And I think if you think about it, even in the last 10 years, Obamacare, there was a public option proposed in Obamacare, or the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, which is what a joke that is. But they actually had no chance. The Democrats didn't think that they could pass it, so they pulled it from the Obamacare proposal. I think it was Joe Lieberman that was the kind of the sticking point. So I think it's funny now that we got Obamacare, which is semi-socialist medicine, public option medicine, and now the same Democrats 10 years later are going another step towards more socialism and this public option. So to me, it just proves that we are moving more towards this big government solutions and what do they call it, public option or Medicare for all. I do think we'll eventually get there because politicians are weak and they want to, give freebies out because that's what they do to get reelected. And I think eventually the Republicans will cave because they've already started by saying that they're going to have all pre-existing conditions covered. and we've talked about that. It's it's not insurance if you cover pre-existing conditions. It's like getting in an accident in your car and then go file a claim and buy insurance, or start a fire in your house and then go buy fire insurance. That's what pre-existing conditions are. And we talked on the prior show that this is not insurance. This is a subsidy. So, but I'm rambling, Rich. I know
you are rambling, and I'm slowly dozing off here. I gotta believe that not all politicians are losing their mind, right? I can't believe all Democrats, when they look at this, would agree with it. I can't believe all Democrats would agree with Bernie or AOC or Warren, because it just doesn't make sense in a lot of ways. So hopefully, unless they're just...
I don't think they are. I think even Democrats are pushing back on those three. But like I said, 10 years ago, they didn't want this public option. Now they all think that that's the fallback position. That's the moderate position. That used to be the radical position. Now it's the moderate position. So I'm worried that the arc is moving towards progressivism. So final comments here, Richie, on Medicare for all and not analytics versus gut.
God bless. Yeah, first of all, I don't know what you were smoking earlier, but I'm glad you got it back on track. God bless.
Everyone makes mistakes, Richie.
Not you. You rarely make a mistake.
It's hard to do this role.
God bless our children and our grandchildren, because what they're going to get from a government and everything else is going on 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, when you and I are long gone, is frightening. And this is one of them.
I better not be gone in 10 years. That would be disappointing.
You got 20 in you. So if you think about it, I think the way to get people to open their eyes is to equate it to actual take-home pay. So if you're blue collar and you're paying 28 or 30 or 32% taxes, and now your taxes go to 60% or 50% or whatever.
And that's exactly what would happen. Scandinavian countries are doing
exactly what will happen. And you realize, I can't afford my car. I can't afford to go out to dinner. I can't afford to go on vacation.
Right.
Maybe you'd think differently. But no one's taking it down to that level, into like the Ben Franklin income versus expenses. And you really need to.
Yep. And a lot of it is based on trusting politicians, which is an extremely dangerous thing to do. My final comment in this, Richie, is that I really think it's going to go to this concierge medicine. I think more and more doctors are going to go to this concierge medicine, and that is basically that you pay a $2,000 fee to have access to a doctor with limited wait times and high availability. And I think there's going to be two systems. I think there's going to be a private system for wealthy and a public system for everyone else. And I don't know how soon that'll happen, but I do think in my lifetime, I'm going to live more than 20 years, hopefully. I think we'll see that. And I guess I'd say to all you out there that have a little bit extra money, you better save more for retirement, because I think retirement healthcare costs are going to go up for all of us, because there's going to be a premium option, because you won't want to wait 48 weeks for a surgery. And, save your money, folks. It wasn't intimidating enough to save for retirement. Now you got to save even more for medical care and retirement. So, all right, Richie.
I'm always depressed when I leave this show.
Don't
okay,
be.
I'm happy.
All right, Richie. So we're going to close with some fun, Richie. Hopefully you'll enjoy this. But these are some of the worst. Only picked out 3. Some of the worst medical treatments from history. You ready for this one?
I'm ready.
And I want your full interactivity here, Richie. The tobacco smoke enema.
I hate to hear that this is on the list. I just had one.
In the late 1700s, tobacco started to arrive on English shores from the Americas. Along with it came the idea that when used as an enema, tobacco smoke could cure a wide range of ailments. As this name suggests, the tobacco smoke enema involves literally blowing smoke up the patient's rectum.
Who's the one that gets to do that? I thought you'd smoke it through your butt.
Doctors should be paid more, evidently. The so-called pipe smoker London medic would use the technique on those who fell into the River Thames and were near drowned. Tobacco smoke enemas were were thought to both warm the patient from within and stimulate respiration.
It does.
The Royal Human Society left resuscitation kits, including the equipment necessary to carry out the tobacco enema, at certain points along the river.
See, here's what I don't get. There are a handful of people in my life that if they needed mouth to mouth, I may have to let them die. If one of my friends or family members needed buttock, tobacco, enema, mouth to mouth.
Sorry, boy.
Hey.
See you in heaven.
Wow. That's horrendous.
What in the world are on people's minds? I mean, how in the world? I can understand, like, yeah, you want to warm the person because when you're in cold water, your body goes cold and you want to warm them up. Why couldn't you breathe in their mouth? It has to go up.
Well, it gets there much quicker. If you go through the mouth, it takes much longer. You got to remember, though.
Well, they probably had to do both, in fairness.
Tobacco, for thousands of years, right? You get that nicotine high, it makes you kind of initially feel all energized.
I never smoke, but I can.
I don't either, but that's how it works, right? And even in the 60s, the late 60s, we had a cartoon called Tobar the Eighth Man.
I remember that, yes.
And he had a big 8 on his chest. I think it was a black and white cartoon. And he had to fight monsters from outer space. In order to get revved up and strong enough to fight them, he would light up a cigarette. And this was a kid's cartoon.
Yeah.
So tobacco,
imagine if he took an enema right there on the show.
if he took a buttock enema instead, he would have kicked all those monsters' butts much quicker.
Because he would have got the juice quicker. Right?
He would have been fired up faster.
All right, Richie. So number 2, cutting teeth. This is kind of cringeworthy. In the old days, infant mortality was sky high, and much of the time, the reason for death was wholly unknown. Children frequently died at 6 months to 2 years of age, which coincidentally was around the time their first teeth were coming through. The medical minds of the day thought this might not be a coincidence, so they concluded that the process of teething was also the cause of infant death.
Oh, boy.
So how did physicians combat this evil? Unfortunately for the children involved, they developed a wide array of interventions, including bleeding, blistering, and placing leeches on the gums. In some cases, they even burnt the back of the baby's head. But gum lancing eventually became the preferred method.
Sure.
This involved lancing a baby's gum up to 10 times when the baby was approximately 18 months old or as soon as they saw some swelling of the gums. They would lance the gums down to the teeth. Ugh.
And back then, there was no anesthesia.
Oh, no. It's unknown how many babies died from the infections caused by these procedures. Is that it's just barbarism?
Well, if we go to free Medicare for all or a public choice,
these are the doctors.
These are the type of doctors you're going to get.
They're going to come back. They're going to bring back baby lancing.
Baby lancing will be back.
Our last one, Rich, and maybe the most humorous and most disgusting. Improve your smile the inexpensive way. Today, urine has few everyday uses, which is a shame considering
it should.
Considering its wide availability. In Roman times, however, it was a different story. Urine was such a popular commodity that people collected it from public urinals. How'd you like that job? Piss boy.
Probably the same guy that blows the smoke up your butt.
There was even a tax to pay for those who profited from the sale of the golden liquid. Many of the urine's uses were non-medical, such as the production of gunpowder and to soften leather. One less savory use of urine, however, was as a tooth whitener. Apparently, leaving the urine to fester for some time gives the urine time to convert into ammonia, which is an antibacterial and bleaching agent used in household cleaning products. The ammonia allegedly helped clear teeth of their stains. No mention of how it affected morning breath, however.
Well, no, I got to stick up for this one because I'm okay with my own urine. I mean, in some Middle Eastern or Far Eastern countries, you're even supposed to drink like a 8-ounce glass of your urine per day. So I gargle.
Matt Damon did in Martian.
Yeah, I gargle with my own urine, and I'm okay. I won't use yours.
I wonder why your teeth were so bright.
My teeth are really white, but I'll only use my own urine. I won't use yours or my wife's or even my daughter's.
And you won't shoot it up your butt.
Well,
as a urine enema.
because think about
we
it.
can combine two things here.
The problem with the urine enema is that it takes too long to get to your teeth. So if you gargle with urine and do the smoke tobacco butt routine, you would be the healthiest guy I know. You won't even need
How
healthcare.
about this? Cook urine and collect the water vapor from the urine, then use it as an enema. I mean, I'm really getting deep.
We could be doctors.
We could make $1 million. All right, Richie. Any comments on the barbarism from history before we adjourn
There's
the show?
so many others.
Oh, I know. It is.
Right? Electric shock treatment, frontal lobotomies,
Leeches, of course.
bloodlettings.
Leeches were the famous
Leeches
ones.
were huge.
Yeah.
I still have a jar of leeches. You never know when something, a blister or a pustulent sore pops up.
Oh,
leeches are great for that. No, it's horrific.
It's amazing we survived this long as a
As a
species. All right, Richie. So now I can actually say what we're going to be talking about next week, as my mind has become a little clearer.
Well,
So
everyone will thank you for that earlier show teaser.
yeah, I lost my mind there a little bit, but we are going to be talking about analytics versus gut. There is a slight chance that we'll have an audible. We're trying to line up a great guest for you. And he has a book out, and we might have to slot that in. But for right now, we're going to do analytics versus gut. And that is, as you heard earlier, originated in a text group where we were critiquing coaches. And let's face it, analytics are the norm, and they're much more mainstream now versus gut. When we were growing up, Richie, it was all gut. But analytics are it since Moneyball, right? Brad Pitt, remember that
Absolutely.
movie? And the Oakland A's really were the ones that started this trend. What's that, 25 years ago probably
Yep.
now? Or late 80s or
Late
something
80s.
like that? But anyhow, we're going to talk about analytics versus gut. What do you think about that as a topic next episode?
It's a great
Richie?
topic, and it's not just sports, right? There's analytics in everything now. There's business analytics, there's medical analytics, there's predictive analytics. A lot of it's based on artificial intelligence and machine learning, and it's the new way of life. Now, the problem with it is it kind of eliminates the intuitive nature of humans. So that's what we're going to talk about.
And I think you and I are going to disagree. I think it's going to be fun because you're going to come down on the side of gut, and I think I'm going to come down on the side of data. And I'm all for autonomous cars. You're probably not.
Not
Right,
at all.
Right. I'm all for that because statistically, it's going to be a lot
That's
safer.
why you may not make it 20 more years.
I may not make it, and I may not make it to the end of the show, but I think I did. So, anyhow, as always, please remember, if what you see or hear sounds idiotic, then we're just the guys to help you sort it out. See y'all next episode. Take care.
Thank you for listening. Please download, subscribe, share, and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and also our website.